All right, so did you know that here in Jamaica, there are approximately 38,000 youth between the ages of 5 and 17 who are involved in child labor? Did you know that? That's according to a recent International Labour Organization, or ILO, report. Zooming in now to discuss protection for those involved in child labor in Jamaica, Director of Children and Family Programs at the CPFSA, Child Protection and Family Services Agency, Warren Thompson. Welcome to Smile, Warren. Good to have you.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It's good to
I'm sorry
have
I couldn't
you.
be with you
I
in
know.
studio on your new set.
Yes. How do you feel about our new set?
It looks good. I like it.
Happy to
I
hear
like
it.
it.
So one day we will have you here. That smile of yours this morning belying a problem that we have, 38,000 young people involved in child labor. I'm wrapping my mind around it, but I don't think many Jamaicans really understand what we say when we mean almost 40,000 of our young people are involved in child labor. So break that down. What are we talking about when we say child labor?
Interestingly enough, when most persons call to report, let's say, child abuse, they don't necessarily know that they're reporting child labor. They're reporting that something is happening to the child. And based on the narrative that they give, we say, okay, this child is a victim of child labor. Of course, child labor is any kind of work that is physically, mentally, or emotionally, or morally dangerous to a child. The law says that in Jamaica, no child under 13 is allowed to work. The only exceptions are if the child is engaging in some kind of artistic endeavor. So, for example, the children are using the television commercials. That child can be paid for that work, but the work cannot cause the child to lose out on his or her education. Between 13 and 15, the child can do what the law refers to as light work. Maybe sweeping up somebody's yard and being paid for it, helping out at the market or at the supermarket. So that's light work. Then at 15, the child can do full-time work, but it cannot be night work. It can't be work in an adult establishment. So, for example, a bar, a nightclub, or a massage parlor, and so on. But at 18, the individual is no longer a child and can work anywhere he or she pleases. And that wraps up in a nutshell our child labor legislation. Now, the important thing to look for is, one, is a child working for more than 14 hours for the week? That's one. Two, is the work that the child doing causing the child to lose out on his or her education? So the child can't go to school, or is a child losing out on time for play and recreation? Because all children have a right to play and have fun. So those are some of the things that we look for in determining whether a child is a victim of child labor. And of course, we do have a street and working children issue. And I think that is the most visible form of child labor that people see. But then
Warren, I wanted to get there because I'm listening, and boy, there are a lot of gray areas. Because in Jamaica, when we see a lot of the children on the streets, they approach you with, I'm doing this because I need money to go to school. And so in our minds, okay, I'm going to assist them in this because it is helping them with education, but it is still child labor. How do we find a midpoint when we see them on the streets? What do we do?
Yeah, so the thing is a child on the street unsupervised?
Because always.
The child is, right, and that's the issue. That's the problem. The child should not be on the street unsupervised, right? That is putting the child in a situation where mostly he, but sometimes she, is at risk for harm and various forms of exploitation. So that in itself makes the child, especially where the child is being sent by the parent. We see cases where children are given a quota. They have to go out and they have to beg a certain amount, or they have to sell a certain amount of goods to go to school, but they have to come in and return it to somebody, give it to somebody, and that person makes a decision about how they use the funds and so on. So sending a child on the street is not in the child's best interest, and therefore the child is in need of care and protection.
I think Harris was kind of asking your question was how we deal with that when right?
Yes, it's not such an easy question.
It's a very
The answer is
difficult.
not so easy because there are some children who really need the support, in order to go to school and so on. But I would encourage citizens to engage with the youngsters. So when you see a child who comes to you to say they want to sell you something, have the conversation. Where are your parents? I ask them all the time, where are your parents? And I'll say, okay, go and get your parents and come back to me. Of course, they never do come back. But one of the things that we have found is that regarding street and working children, there are specific communities that these children are coming from. You see a child in Barbican, where are you coming from? Majestic Gardens. What are you doing at Barbican Square?
That's far
Oh,
away from home.
yeah, it is far away. They travel far away to go to work. So one of the things that we're doing at the CPFSA, I don't know if you're aware that in 2019, we actually did a street and working children study. And based on that, we are currently crafting a national plan of action to address the street and working children issue. And that's a multi-sectoral, multi-agency response. So there's a technical working group with representatives from various ministries and I believe civil society organizations, where we're brainstorming about how to address the issue, especially noting that many of the youngsters are coming from specific communities.
That, that,
But I want to say that before we jump in, Delia, that that's one of the more visible ways, but there are less visible ways in which children are victims of child labor. So, for example, a child who misses out on a day of school because he or she has to help out on the farm or have to prepare goods for market, it's a practice that still happens. Or a child who is made to take care of other children or even elderly persons and therefore can't attend school. And I'm not saying children should not do chores. I really believe that children should do chores. But if the work that the child is doing is preventing the child from going to school or preventing the child from having fun, to play and to relax and so on, then it is also child labor.
Warren, I was just speaking about behavior and culture with our previous guest, and there was a time in Jamaica where people would say, "Give me the little one, man." So young girls and in some occasion boys would be taken from their parents to go live with other people, and they would be
Right.
the worker in the home.
Right. Right.
So there's a thing about us that we believe when children are young, they must work, and we must put them to
Right.
work. And when them work is a good thing, we're building character. And how do we
So,
overcome
w-
those cultural, kinds
yeah.
of beliefs and values in situations like these when we talk about child labor? Because when we hear them now, I'm like, oh, but when you were a child, that was wrong. That was child labor.
I want to tell you, Delia, that's even more than child labor because there's a very fine line between child labor and child trafficking.
And trafficking,
Yes.
So,
exactly.
right.
But we have to have a conversation about how that's a big part of our culture in Jamaica.
We do, and I think, consistent public education is very, very important, which is why I welcome TVJ's interest in this topic because, as I said, many persons, when they're reporting something, they know something is happening to the child, but they can't really tell you that it is child labor. They're taking, as we say in Jamaica, disadvantage. They're taking advantage of the child, or the child, just it feels as if he or she is being victimized or they're taking a set on him or her.
Yeah.
But what is really happening is that the child is being exploited and someone else is gaining. So you move the child from country to town and the child is exploited while in town, and it happens. And I think when we tell people that this is what it is, their eyes get open, to say, oh, that used to happen to me or that happened to people that I know, or I thought that was a normal thing. But we want Jamaicans to know that this is not normal. Children are being denied, their childhood. They're being forced to work. They're being exploited. Someone else is benefiting from their labor. They can't access education. They can't grow, in a comfortable environment, and it is wrong. And not only wrong, but illegal, and that there are
Yeah.
penalties.
Warren, we have
Yeah.
to go. For folks who, like you said, have called and reported something that just don't feel right in them spirit,
Right.
where do we reach out to the CPFSA to make these complaints? Very quickly.
Very quickly. So 211. It's simple, easy to remember, 24 hours, you can call anytime for the day. So just call 211. Once you are concerned that there's a child who is in need of care and protection, 211 is the number to call.
Okay.
I hope you don't mind if I plug Simone and Delia to tell you that next week we're observing at the CPFSA our Transitional Living Week, where we are looking at how we prepare youngsters to exit care and into independent living. So we have a number of activities like next week for those children who are in care and those youngsters who are already in our transitional living program.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
you can look at that.
Thank
Keep
you
up
very
the
much,
good
Warren.
work. We know it's difficult work, but keep it up, you and your team. Warren, thanks for sharing with us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Have
All
a
right,
good
Warren
day.
Thompson, Director of Children and Family Programs at the CPFSA.
Okay.